And also once you see the screen, please confirm this also. I hope you are able to see the screen as well. Yes, no. These confirmations are mandatory. Okay, so let's get it started. So today we are going to complete the Java loops, the Java control statements. Okay, from tomorrow we are going to start the OOPS concepts, the actual OOPS concepts. So let me give you a quick recap. Yesterday we were discussing about we have actually come to a conclusion, like we have created a formula for the inner for loop. And before even discussing about the inner for loop, today we will be completing this. We will be understanding the complete difference between the different control statements or loops in Java. Right? So there are three prominent loops in Java. One is for loop, while loop, and the do while loop. We will understand all the what we call it as all the minor differences between these three control statements. Right? And for loop and the while loop, they are almost same, but there are some cases, for to solve some problems, we need to approach solving the problem using the for loop. For some problems, the problem needs to be solved by using while loop. We'll discuss about that today. And also, there is a big difference between for loop and while loop versus do while loop, especially the number of iterations wise. If you talk about the number of iterations, this while loop will give you the guarantee that for at least once the body of the loop is going to get executed. At least once it will get executed. That guarantee you will get from the do while loop. Especially the do while loop will give you that guarantee, because first the body will execute it, then the actual conditional expression will come into the picture. Right? So these two are going to be almost same. This is completely different. Right? And we have expression one. Expression one is going to talk about the declaration and initialization. Expression 2, conditional expression. Expression 3, increment or decrement. And statement is nothing but the body of the loop, I can say, not the for loop, body of the loop. Right? So today we will conclude all this with what we call it as with small problems. We will also prepare the cheat sheet. Right? So this is a typical for loop, and I have the outer for loop, and this is the inner for loop. Right? So yesterday we were discussing about the number of iterations that the inner for loop is going to be taking. It completely depends upon the number of iterations that the outer for loop is taking. Right? This has complete dependency on this. Right? Now you tell me one thing. Let me take this and put it in the paint screen. Okay. This is the outer for loop and this is the inner for loop. Right? So let me create a table. So we are preparing a cheat sheet. Okay. Please focus here. You will get a lot of things here now. Okay, this is the cheat sheet, right? So we are going to find how many iterations. So this table is for outer for loop, and this table is being for inner for loop. Inner for loop, right? So all we have to do is we need to find the number of iterations. So how many times the expression 1 will get executed, how many times expression 2 gets executed, how many times expression 3 gets executed, and the statements are nothing but the body of the respective for loop. Okay, so this is the table. Expression 1. So expression 1 always talks about what? It always talks about initialization and the declaration. Expression 2, the conditional expression. Expression 3 is going to talk about increment or decrement. Statements are nothing but the body of the for loop. Right? Now tell me, Now let's talk about the outer for loop. How many times the expression 1 will get executed in the outer for loop, right? How many times the expression 2 gets executed? How many times the expression 3 gets executed? How many times the body of the outer for loop gets executed? Can you tell me that answer? This is a very simple question, right? Can you answer this to me? How many times expression 1 gets executed? How many times expression 2? How many times expression 3? Right? How many times the body of the for loop gets executed? So 1433. Yes, correct. 1433. So let me write this here. Focus here. People who have just joined the Java classes, you can focus this. So expression, this will get executed only once. So this gets executed for 4 times. So this is going to get executed for how many times? 4 times. Okay, this is going to get executed for 3 times, right? And when you talk about the whole body, okay, this is the body of the outer for loop. So inside the body of the outer for loop, we have another for loop again. So this is also the part of the outer for loop itself, right? So if the expression 3 is getting executed for 3 times, it is also like the body of the for loop will also get executed for 3 times. Yes or no? You can say that, right? This body of the for loop is, body of the outer for loop is also going to get executed for the 3 times. We got the numbers 1, 4, 3, 3. Okay. Now tell me individually you tell me how many times inner for loop gets executed. Forget about the outer for loop. Just imagine that we have only the inner for loop. How many times the inner for loop, the expression 1, expression 2, expression 3 and the statement will get executed for the inner for loop. Don't think about the outer for loop. Just give me the independent answer for the inner for loop. It's going to be same, right? No, just give me the independent answer. Independent, yeah. No, I am just asking about the specific inner for loop. Forget about the outer. Don't just assume that you don't have the outer for loop. Just give me the answer only for this. 1433, yes, correct. 1433. 1433. Yes, say the correct 1433. Same thing, Billy. So this is going to be expression 1 will get executed for once, and expression 2 is going to get executed for 4 times. 3 times true and 1 times false. Right? Expression 3 is going to get executed for how many times? 3 times. So the number of the statements, the instructions or the body of the for loop is also going to be same as the expression 3, right? 3 times, right? Okay. These are the standalone numbers. If you consider inner for loop separately, this is the count. If you consider outer for loop separately, this is the count. Okay. So if you consider inner for loop, from the outer for loop perspective, okay, if you consider inner for loop from the outer for loop perspective, the count will be changed, yes or no? Now you give me the count, how many times this the expression 1 gets executed, how many times expression 2, how many times expression 3, how many times expression 4 with respect to the outer for loop. Now I am asking you the actual question. 3, 12, 9, 9. Yes, that's correct. 3, 12, 9. Why 3, 12, 9, 9? Okay. So what answer we got here? We got an answer. So if you take it separately, so we are getting 1, 4, 3, 3. So this is the specific answer for the inner for loop if you treat that for loop separately without even assuming that there is an outer for loop, right? So multiply these values with this 3. You will get the total count. This is the individual count, and again this loop, this for loop will get executed for 3 more times, right? As per the outer for loop, the inner for loop has to get executed for how many times? 3 more times, yes or no? 3 more times, right? So you multiply these values of the inner for loop with this 3. Right? If you do that multiplication, when you do that multiplication with 3, right, what you get? This is going to be 3, 4 3 is 12, right? And 3 3 is 9, 3 3 is 9. This is the count. This is the count that we got. Making sense, everyone? So far? We will run this loop, we will get to know, okay? So this is the count, 3 12 9 9. Is that the answer which you have given? 3 12 9 9. Okay, correct. 3 12 9 9. Okay, what does it mean? The inner for loop, like if you execute this particular Java class, you will see these instructions are getting printed for how many times? 9 times, yes or no? Because this 3 is representing expression 1, this 12 is representing expression 2, this 9 is representing expression 3, this 9 is representing statement, right? This is the count of statement. Statement is also called as the body of the for loop. Here in the body we have only one statement, which is instructions. These instructions has to get displayed for the 9 times in the console, yes or no? Answer this to me, yes or no, everyone? Don't you think so? Hello, Jyoti and Sweta, Chaitanya, Krishna Prasad, Rajiv. Let us run this. We'll get let me run this. Okay, so we have what? Java C space test.java, Java space test. So if you count this, how many instructions? Instructions are being displayed for 9 times. 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Right? We got the answer, right? So by this analysis, we are getting to know how many times the inner for loop is going to get printed in the console, yes or no? Right? Now one more question I will add here. The one more question is like, we have 12. See, now you tell me, guys. So this is 12. This is 12 is representing what? Expression 2. Expression 2, right? How many truths are here and how many falses are here? How many times the condition is going to be true? How many times the condition is going to be false among this 12? Are you getting my question? So this 12 is the count for this conditional expression, right? It means there has to be some count for true values, there has to be some count for false values, because it is a combination of true and false values. This 12 is a combination of true and false values. How many times the true gets executed, how many times the false gets executed? Jyoti and Chaitanya, Krishna Prasad, Rajiv. Didn't I think? Let me tell you this, okay. Yes, 9 true, 3 false. See, if these instructions are being displayed for the 9 times, only for the true cases this is going to get printed, right? How many times we got this output in the console? 9 times. It means for all the true cases, these instructions are being displayed in the console, right? If you count this, you get 9, means 9 truths, right? This is going to be 9 truths, right? And the remaining what? 12 minus 9 is what? 3. 3 times it is going to skip this iteration, right? Means 3 falses. How do you confirm that? Okay, so let me add a false. Let me add one more statement here. System.out.println. If I add false here, I'm adding a false here, right? If the for loop is getting executed successfully, for all the true conditions, instructions will be displayed in the console. For all the false conditions, false will be displayed in the console. If I run this, we will get to know how many times the true conditions is get satisfied, how many times the false condition is getting satisfied, right? Let me run this. See, 3 instructions, true, 1 false, 3 true, 1 false, 3 true, 1 false, totally 9 truths and 3 falses. Making sense? Out of this 12, out of this 12, right, out of this 12, right, we have 9 true checks and 3 false checks. Making sense? It's a conclusion, no? Everyone? Yes, no? Jyoti and Sweta, Chaitanya. Why Chaitanya is not responding? Tirumala, Raji B, Sweta. Right. Okay. So, and again, there is one more conclusion, right? Okay, just look at this. Look at this in this way. Okay, just imagine that you don't have the inner for loop, right? You don't have the inner for loop. Just for our imagination. Okay, I am having statement system dot out dot println, right? So statement. Okay, so now you know the count. Okay, the expression 1 will get executed for 1 time, expression 2 gets executed for 4 times, expression 3 gets executed for 3 times, and this body of the for loop is going to get executed for 3 times, right? So we have the count 4 is there, right? From this count 4, I can also say that 3 times it is going to be true and 1 time it is going to be false, right? 3 times it's true, 1 time it's false. Making sense? If I run this, let me keep another statement outside to check the control is getting here for the false statement. If false, instead of statement, let me write true itself. If I run this, I should get the output like 3 truths in an order, then I should get false, right? It means 3 times among these 4, 3 values are reserved for true and 1 value is reserved for false, right? This is the situation for the outer for loop. The 3 truths, 1 false. Outer for loop situation. You understand this? First you tell me. Everyone? Yes, no? Okay. If you understand this, understanding this is going to be easy as well. What kind of difficulty is there in understanding this? Right, same question, but I have added an inner for loop. Right, when I add an inner for loop, right? So let me take here true instead of instruction, inner true. What is the formula? First you find the number of counts for the expression 1. Right, here it is going to be 1, 4, 3, 3. Find the number of counts for the inner for loop separately first. 1, 4, 3, 3. Right, so this is a separate count for the inner for loop. 1 time this is going to get executed, 4 times it is going to get executed, including 3 trues and 1 false. 3 times it is going to execute it, 3 times. Let me write it like this. 4 is can also be written as 3 trues, 3 t and 1 false. Three tree and 1 f. Right, I need to multiply these individual values with the number 3, because this is what the count of the number of executions for the inner for loop. This is giving the number of times that the inner for loop, the outer for loop, the body of the outer for loop is going to get executed. So I will take this 3 and I will multiply with this value into 3. What answer I get? Right, 3 ones 3. Right, 3 threes 9 times true. Right, 3 ones 3 times false. Right, 9 times the expression 3 and the 9 times body of the inner for loop. Making sense now, everyone? Now it is clear, I guess. Okay, now you tell me, if I leave any statement here, okay, this is a statement outside the place, or outside the, or placed next to the, or placed sequentially after the inner for loop. Means for all the false cases, whenever it is encountered, whenever the iteration is encountering the false conditional check, this will get executed. In this case, this is getting executed for three number of times. 3 times it is going to get executed. So this false is getting encountered for 3 times. Right? So now let us do this. If I take this especially if I take this as not this, if the number of instructions are n, if the number of instructions are calculated as n, okay, outer for loop, for the outer for loop, if the statements are getting executed for n times, right, this conditional check will always get executed for n plus 1 times, right? This conditional check of the outer for loop will always get executed for how many times? N plus 1 times. N plus 1 times. Because 1 is meant to reserved for false, this n is reserved for true conditions, right? So for the outer for loop, I can say that always the expression 1 is going to get executed for 1 time. Always the expression 2 is going to get executed for how many times? Expression 2, n plus 1 times. 1 times higher, right? Expression 3 will be for n times. Expression statement is also for n times. This is the formula. Can I come to this conclusion, everyone? You substitute any value here, you will get the count of the outer for loop. You substitute any value. If you find the count for expression 3, you already got the count for expression 2 also. 3 plus 1 equal to 4. Or else if you find the count of statement, number of times the statements are getting executed, you already found the count for expression 3. There is a good correlation between these expressions, right? Yes or no? Making sense, everyone? Guys, try to be interactive. If you are not understanding, just let me know so that I will repeat. Don't stay idle, everyone. I want answers from you. I want a response from you. If you are not understanding, tell me, I will repeat this. I am not understanding whether you have understood this or not. That's the question here. Okay. So, we have got this. Okay, now let us calculate the formula for the inner for loop. This for inner for loop. So individually, this is, let us take this is n1, the expression 1 will get executed for n1 times. Okay, so let us consider this. The body of the inner for loop is getting executed for n1 times. If the body of the inner for loop is getting executed for n1 times, okay, this conditional check will get executed for how many times? n1 plus 1 time. n1 plus 1 time. If this is n1, the expression 3 is also going to be what? n1. Right? So this is not going to stop here. And again, what happens? This n1 and n has to be multiplied by what? The n times, right? This is a correlation, right? Should get multiplied by n. So I can come to a conclusion like expression 1 for inner for loop is like 1 into n, right? And expression 2 is going to be like n1 plus 1 into n, right? This is going to be like n1 into n. This is also going to be like n1 into n. Making sense? Right? If you calculate n1 and n, okay, all the values you can substitute here. You will get the right answer. Let us see if this formula is working or not. Right? Let us take another program. Okay. Now you give me the count. Okay. We will just try to substitute this count within the formula. Right. So now I am doing a small change here. In the outer for loop, I am keeping the conditional check as 2. Okay. In the inner for loop, I am keeping it as 4. Right. Now you give me the individual count first. Give me the individual count of outer for loop. Firstly, individual count I want. How many times the outer for loop is going to get executed? Now you give me that answer firstly. Everyone. One. Oh, no. One. Cheta. It should be 1322. Okay. If you. Okay. 1322. If I want to explain you about the sequence, 1 is representing expression 1, 3 is representing conditional check. That has one false is included here. 2 is representing what? The expression 3. And then another 2 is representing the number of executions of the statement. Okay. Don't get any confused. So this is going to be what? 1, 3, 2, 2. Right? Now second thing. Give me the individual count for this inner individual count. I'm not asking about the, don't even consider the outer for loop. First you find the individual count of the inner for loop. One 1544. Because see this is always 1. This is always expression 1 is always going to get executed only once. No doubt in that. Right? When you talk about this expression, the boundary starts from 1 to 4. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4 means 4 truths. And also there will be one false also. No? For 4 truths, this will get executed. For 1 false, this gets executed. Right? That's why 1544. Yeah. 1, 5. See, if this is 5, okay, the next value is going to be 1 lesser than this. It will be 4, 4. So that is the takeaway here. Like for example, if there is any for loop, right, if the expression 2 is getting executed for 10 times, obviously the expression 3 has to get executed for 9 times only, right? So if you look at this format, it will make sense. If I say that this expression 2 is getting executed for for 11 times, means out of 11, 10 is for true counts and 1 is for false count, right? If you find the count of if you find the count of n, definitely you can replace this n count with for expression 3 as well as for the statements, right? Okay, now you answer this. There is a typical for loop. There is a for loop, okay, that is placed somewhere, and if that for loop is if the expression 2 for that for loop is getting executed for 12 times, what is the count of expression 3 and the statement? Everyone answer this. 11, 11, right? Very simple. Only it should be one number less. 11, 11. How we are able to guess this? Because of this formula, right? If you look at this formula, you can able to calculate, right, number of times the inner for loop is going to get executed or not. Yes, no? Right? So this is what the count that you have given, 1544. Right? When you consider the outer as well as inner, now if you consider all this together, right, you need to make some changes for the inner for loop. What is that change? 1544 has to get multiplied with what? 2. Right? Has to get multiplied with what? What number? Number 2. Right? So by this I can conclude that here the value of n is for outer for loop. N is what? 2. Value of n1 is what? Value of n1 is what? 5. 5. This is representing n1. This is representing n. Value of n1 is what? 5. Right? By this 2, if I get to know these two answers, right, I can solve this, right? I will able to like I can able to guess the number of I can able to guess the count for all the expressions for the outer for loop as well as for the inner for loop. Yes or no? We got the value of n. We got the value of n1. We substitute this, you will get an answer, right? Yes, no? Everyone? You will get the right answer, right? If there any difficulty, this is the cheat sheet. If you remember this, you can directly say that okay, expression to gets executed for this many times, but you have to ensure that how many times you have to ensure that how many you want to find the value of n as well as value of n1. If you get to know this, answering the question is very easy, right? Your job is to find the value of n, value of n1. Making sense, everyone? It's a good cheat sheet. This will be, you can solve, if you remember this, you can guess the output easily. At least you can guess the number of iterations of each and every expression, or number of times each and every expression is getting executed. A good cheat sheet, very good cheat sheet. Making sense, or you people are finding it any difficulty? Right? So let us substitute this. Where is it? Okay. So instead of taking 5 here, I can also take that 4 times true and 1 times false. 1 time is for false. Right? And do the substitution. 2, 8 times true, 2 times false, 8, 8. So by looking at this, don't you think that this inner true, we need to see that this inner true is getting printed for 8 number of times in the console, right? And this false has to get print for how many times? 2 number of times. Yes or no? 2 number of times, because for all the false conditions only the control the control of the main thread will find an exit. As soon as it encounters false, it will find an exit. It will exit from the for loop, and this has to get executed. How many times this will get executed depends upon this 2f. For 2 falses, we get output false will be displayed in the console for the 2 times. Let us check this. 2 false we have, 8 trues we have. Making sense? Everyone? Making very sense, right? Remember this. You will able to approach. You will be able to solve a lot of problems on data structures if you remember this foundation level understanding. Okay, right? So by looking at this output, I can also say that these as the direct dependency on this, right? Or I can say that this has the direct dependency. This has the direct dependency on this value. How many times this false is getting executed? 2 times. Or I can also say that this false will be printed for outer for loop expression 3 times. This count is always going to be this count. Making sense? Do you agree with this? Don't you think so, everyone? Yes, no? This is the reset answer or the no? Making sense, no? This is another conclusion, no? Okay, when you want to know how many times this the inner for loop is going to encounter false conditions, right? Instead of calculating it here, you can just say it by looking at this, right? Just look at this and you can say, right, this is true, this is 2 times, this is also going to be for 2 times. So now you answer me. If I have a count like 1, 10, 9, 9, this is for inner for loop. How many times the outer for loop is going to get executed? How many times the inner for loop, especially how many times the false conditions will get repeated? Can you answer this? This is for the inner for loop. Sorry, this is for the outer for loop. Sorry guys, I'm confusing myself. This is for the outer for loop. If I ask you this question, For the inner for loop, how many times if the inner for loop is going to encounter the false condition? What is the answer now? 9 times. Good. 9 times. 9 times. This is the count. By looking at, you can say, okay, this count is meant for the inner for loop. You have inner for loop. This count is also meant for the inner for loop. For the conditional check, that is especially reserved for the false conditions. Right? We can make it out, right? Yeah. So these are the questions. These are the maximum questions. This is the understanding. This is not a question. This is an understanding. This is how we need to understand. This is how we need to approach the for loops. Right? If you have a nested for loop, the output is going to be you will be getting a lot of output. But by this knowledge, you will get to know that how many times, how many number of iterations inner for loop will have to consider. This will work only for the finite loops, not for the infinite loops. Making sense? Right? Shall we jump into the next topic, while loop? Everyone, good. I want answers from you. If you are giving me answers, then I can proceed with the next topic. Okay, this is the conclusion. Okay. You try with number of examples, at your home. Take pen and paper and you try for all the possible combinations. Okay, you will get a clear picture. Now we will do this for the do while loop. And again, I am saying for while loop, it is also going to be same. The formula for the while loop, okay, you can use the same cheat code for the while loop also. For loop and while loop both are same. Both are always same. But when you are approaching for loop, there are some cases you use for loop, there are some cases you use while loop. But output wise, the execution wise, the count of the expression 1, the count of the expression 2 and 3 and the statements are going to be same. You can use the same table for while loop also. Okay, I don't think you need any expression on this. Everyone, shall we proceed with the do while loop now? Say yes or no, do while for do while. Okay, now understand this for the do while. Okay, this is going to be very interesting. Pay some attention. Sometimes this is going to be a very tricky one. Okay, so do, this is syntax. Do syntax while. What is actually do while? What do while does? It will execute this will execute this body at least once. Then it will do the conditional check. There is a guarantee that the body of the do while loop will get executed at least once. Then they will check the condition. Right? So let me we need three. We need expression 1. Expression 1 should always be defined outside of the do loop. Right? Not only outside. Let me take the integer I equal to 1. Declaration is done. Declaration and initialization. This is talking about what? Expression 1. Expression 2. This is the place that is reserved for expression 2. Expression 2 is meant for what? Conditional check, right? Expression 2, conditional expression. So this is the place for the conditional expression, right? Let me take it as I is lesser than or equal to 3. What is remaining? Expression 3 is remaining, right? So expression 3 is mean for increment or decrement. Okay, let me take the expression 3 here, I plus plus. And what is another thing? Statements. Let me take one statement inside the body. System dot out dot println. What is this? Instructions. You can write anything for understanding. Okay, let me keep it very simple. Instructions. Right? So now if I run this, if I execute this, what is the output now? You tell me first. First you tell me the output, then we will look into this further. Give me the output for this. Everyone. Give me the output for this. One, two, three, four. Okay, let me run this. Instructions only. Why 1, 2, 3, 4? 3 times instructions will be displayed in the console. I did not mention anywhere that this variable is going to get displayed in the console, right? Only 3 times instructions are going to get displayed in the console. Jyotiyan, getting this? Yes, 3 times instruction. Right? Veda is not answering, Rajiv is not answering. Okay. We know this already. Okay, first this will get executed. First the body will get executed. Okay, then the conditional check will happen. Right? Before even checking this condition, this instruction's word is already printed before checking this condition. So in the console, this will get printed. Okay, by looking at this condition, how many times it is going to return true? If you understand one thing, guys, increment is happening in the body itself, right? The increment is being performed in the body of the for loop itself, right? What does it mean? Even though the value is initialized to 1, okay, the value 1 is assigned to variable I, it means this value is getting manipulated here itself. It is becoming 2 already. In the conditional check, this 2 is getting checked in this condition. 2 is less than or equal to 3. Of course, it will return true. Next loop, next iteration, this becomes 3. Again, 3 will be checked. This is going to return true. Next iteration, right? 4 is checked. It will return false. 2 trues and 1 false. We have discussed about this already in the yesterday's class. In the yesterday's class as well as previous class. Right? In the do while loop, the expression 1 is always 1, even for do while or while or for the for loop. Right? But the expression 2 is going to be same as the expression 3 and the instructions. If this is 3, this is also 3. This is also 3. Right? If this is 4, this is also 4. This is also 4. Making sense? It's always going to be fine. We need to identify how many times the for is, the false is getting executed in the inner do while loop. Making sense? Jyotiyan? Is it clear now? Right? Okay, now let me take the inner nested do while loop. This is the simple while loop. Now I am taking what? The nested do while. Nested do while is actually what? A do while loop inside a do while loop. A for loop inside a for loop is what? Nested for loop. A do while loop inside a do while loop is what? Nested do while loop. Let me create some space here. Inside this I am adding another do. Right? So this is another do loop. I need to place a while here. Syntactically it is correct, but for the nested do while loop I need to place expression 1 for this, right? So I am initializing a variable j here, j equal to 1, right? An instruction, let me take it as this is outer and this is inner. Focus here. This is inner. Right? Conditional check I need to place. Here I am taking the condition as j is lesser than or equal to 3. Right? And the expression 3 what? Increment or decrement, j plus plus. Let me separate this for you. Tab. Okay, this is inner do while or nested do while. This is outer do while. Making sense? Everyone? Inner, outer. Programmatically, are we good now till now? Just the program. We are not running the output yet. Are you able to find any difficulties in understanding this? This is inner do while. This is outer do while. Syntactically, we are correct. Yes or no? Answer it to me. Krishna Prasad, RGB. Okay. Now, if you give me the count, if I ask you the count of expression 1, expression 2, and expression 3. If I ask you the count before even thinking about the count. Okay, first you give me the count here. Give me the count of the expression 1, expression 2, expression 3 and the statement for the outer do while loop. Everyone, give me the count. You have given me the count for the for loop, but I am asking you to give me the count for the do while loop, outer do while loop, not the inner. Don't consider the inner one. Just give me the count of the expression 1, expression 2 and expression 3 for the outer do while loop. Jyoti, you are making a mistake again. I was telling you for the outer do while loop, okay, the expression 2 is going to be same as the instructions and the expression 3. For loop is different, do while loop is completely different. When you take for loop, this is the example for loop, okay, the expression to for loop is always going to be added with 1. You need to add plus 1. That is not the same case. This case cannot be applied to the do while loop, because for the do while loop, the count of the expression 2 is going to be same as the number of times the statement is going to get executed. If this is giving 3, this is also should be 3. This is going to give 3, right? So it should be what? 1, 3, 3, 3. Making sense? Jyoti, you got it now? 1433 is a count for loop, not for the do while loop. Do while loop is completely different. I need to aware about it. You need to do a lot of practice here. If not, you will not get the concept of do while loop. Very important for the to develop the any data structures queries. So we got the count for outer do while loop. Now give me the count of inner do while loop. Separately I am asking, independently take it as a separate do while loop and give me the count. Don't you think that the count is going to be same, right? 1333. 1333. 1 for expression 1, 3 for conditional check, 3 for expression 2 and 3 for instructions. Okay, if I ask you the count of inner do while loop with respect to the outer do while loop, we need to do a manipulation, right? Into what? This has to be multiplied with what? This has to be multiplied with 3. If you do that, we get 3, 9, 9, 9. Here, how do we confirm that this 9 is representing the instructions? Okay, this inner has to get printed in the console for 9 number of times. If you are getting count 9, then the logic is correct, right? This outer has to get printed for 3 number of times. 3 times outer, 9 times inner. Do you think we are going to get the same output which I am just mentioning? Yes, no? Everyone agree with me, no? So what I am saying is 9 times inner will be printed in the console and 3 times outer will be printed in the console. Yes, no? Okay, let us check this, okay? Just you give with 3 times inner, 3, 6, 9 times inner, 3 times outer. We got it. Making sense? Let us prepare the cheat code. You will get the complete picture now. Let me prepare the cheat code for this. Then you will understand. You will understand it better. I assume that you are understanding this and I am preparing the cheat code. Is there anyone who is not understanding this? I am not asking the new persons. I am asking the people who are with me for a long time. Since the for loop is started. Everything is understood, right? Jyoti and Krishna Prasad, Rajiv, Chaitanya. Okay. So this is the last class for the while loop. So stay with me. If you get disconnected, please rejoin. We will conclude this today itself. Okay, this is for do while loop. I am preparing cheat code for do while loop now. Stay focused. Pay some attention here. Okay, so this is, let me separate this. Okay, so this is inner do while. Let me put it in red. This is inner do while, right? And the blue thing, the blue square, the blue boundary is for the outer do while, right? I am creating a table. So table for outer do while and for inner do while. Same table I am creating, which I have created for the for loop. Outer, inner, right? Expression 1, expression 2. When I say expression 1, you just try to think like expression 1 is for initialization declaration, expression 2 is for conditional check, expression 3 is for what? Increment or decrement, and statement is mean for number of times the block of the loop is going to get executed, right? Let us calculate for the outer for loop, right? So this is the outer do while loop. This is outer do while loop, right? So we have already found the count, right? The count is what? 1 comma 3 comma 3 comma 3. Yes or no? 1 comma 1 3 3 3. I can also say that let me write those numbers next to the particular instruction. This will get executed for one time. This gets executed. No, the expression 2. This is expression 2. This get executed for 3 number of times. 3 number of times. If this is getting executed for 3 number of times, this is also 3. This is also 3. Why this is also 3? This is also 3 because by the time the condition is getting checked, this is already executed, right? Increment is happening first, then the conditional check is getting encoded. 1333. Right? So let me put the numbers for inner for loop. Individual numbers. 1, right? This is again 3. This is again what? This is again 3. Right? This is also 3. Then we got the count. Individual count for inner do while loop, individual count for outer do while loop. Right? If I want to find the count for the inner do while loop with respect to the outer do while loop, I need to multiply this individual values with the 3. And multiply this value with 3. Right? Let me do that multiplication here. This into 3. This into 3 is going to be 3. Give me a moment, let me connect my charger. Okay. Right? So this into 3. Going to give me 9. Right? This into 3. Is going to give me 9. Right? And again this into 3. It's also pending, right? I can say 3 into 3. This is also 9. Let me take directly as 9. Right? So when I say when I keep this as n, when I assume this as n, right? When I assume this as n1, I'm assuming this as n, I'm assuming this as n1. Okay, if I have to write the logic, 1 times this is what? This is n times. Everything is going to be n times only, right? N times. Also n times, right? If this is 1 time, if this is n1 times into n times, n1 into n times, you need to consider the outer for loop execution, right? This is also n1 into n times. This is also n1 into n times. This is a cheat code. This is a cheat code for do while loop. If you find n and n1, you will get the answers. Let us substitute the same example. Right? What is the value of n here? This is 3 times, right? What is the value of n1 here? 3 times, right? We got n, we got n1. Substitute those values here. Substitute those. Sorry, this is also a 1 into n1. So 1 into n. 1 into everything should be n. 1 into n. 1 into n. Right? If you find the value of n here, if let us say that n is 3 here and n1 is 3, right? You get the answers. N is 3, this is going to be 3, this is going to be 3, this is going to be 3. If n1 is also 3, 3 into 3 is going to be 9, 3 into 8 is going to be 9, this is going to be 9, this is going to be 3. Don't you think we got the values just by substitution? For any do while loop, don't you think we will get the answers? Yes, no? Yes, no, everyone? Do you understand this cheat sheet? Rajiv, Jyoti N, Chaitanya. It's cheat sheet. This is for loop. For loop and the while loop is going to be same, no difference. But for do while, there is a marginal difference. Marginal, but the huge. I can't say marginal. There is a huge difference, but it is not visible. It is not a visible difference, but there is a huge difference. Both are not going to be same, right? Cheat sheet. Making sense? Let me do a check here. 1 minute. Okay. So I hope it is clear now, right? So by this I can conclude that the concepts of do and do while and the while and the what we call it as the for loop is over. Okay, let me give you some theory. Very important theory. Okay. So a small table here going to be very this will be concluded soon. Stay with me. So this boundary is for loop. Okay, this boundary is for while loop and this boundary is for do while loop. Okay, for loop, while loop and do while loop. Okay, for loop. Let us begin with for loop. Okay, if anyone is asking a question between the difference between for while and do while, okay, this is how we need to answer. Programmatically we got to know how many times instructions or each and every instructions are going to get executed. Theoretically we need to learn something. Okay, the for loop iterates a part of the program for multiple times as long as the condition is true, right? Same thing is applied for what? Same thing is applied for the while loop also. No changes. You can say the while loop iterates the part of the program on based upon the specific condition for a particular number of times, right? But when you talk about the do while loop, do while loop iterates a part of as long as the condition is true and as long as not the condition is true. So this is going to be a little different. However, the body of the do while loop gets executed at least once. It is guaranteed. No matter what the condition is, at least once it gets executed, right? At least once, right? It will not check the condition first. At least once it will get executed, then the condition will be taken into the picture, right? So second statement is, if you know the boundary, it says if the number of iterations are fixed. If you know that you need to print numbers from 1 to 10, if you know the boundary already, right? You can say if the number of iterations is fixed, or if you know the boundary is recommended to use for loop. In this case, if the number of iterations are not fixed, or if you do not know the boundary, I will explain you this. This is a simple thing. I will explain you. Boundary. It is better to use for loop. Sorry, while loop. I need some sleep. Right? And in this case, very simple. If you want to execute the body of the loop at least once, if you want to execute the body of, no matter what the condition is, no matter whether the condition is true or false, at least once if you want to execute the body of the loop, same thing. At least once, then better, then you have not better, then you must use do while loop. Very special loop. This is a very special loop, right? Very special loop. Okay. So next thing is, you know the syntax. You know the syntax for this. For the infinite loop, I can say this is a syntax for the infinite loop. Infinite for loop, this is syntax. So if you do this, the for loop will get executed for the n number of times. System dot out dot println. Why this is getting executed for the n times? Repeat my previous video, you will get to know. I have explained about the infinite for loop. Repeat that previous video. If you are not getting this, you will get to know. If someone is joining, okay. Syntax for the infinite loop, for the while loop is like very straightforward. While loop, right? System dot out dot println, right? Okay, syntax for the infinite while loop, right? syntax for the infinite do while loop. Do while infinite do while loop. So these are syntax. If you are being asked to display to write a program for a infinite for loop, this is what you write. For infinite while loop, this is what you write. For infinite do while loop, this is what you write. Okay, so let me run that for the people who have just joined recently. For expression 1 is optional, expression 2 is optional, expression 3 is optional. Why it is optional? Watch my previous videos, you will get to know. System.out.println, right? This is infinite, right? Yes, no, agree? Everyone? We have seen this already, right? I don't think we need any expression. Raji B, Jyoti N, and Chaitanya, you answer this infinite, right? One is, yeah. Let me run this. Let me run this for our proof. There is a syntactical mistake. Okay, it should be only 2. Infinite. Let me stop it forcefully. Infinite for loop, and for the while loop, same thing. I will just use while. I will replace this with true. Infinitely, it will be iterations will get executed for infinite number of times. Okay, it keeps getting executed. Okay? Infinite, right? And for the do while, do while, infinite do while. Infinite do while. Making sense? You got this right? Making sense? And I will tell you why you need to choose while loop for certain conditions. Okay, why one should go for while loop for certain conditions. Okay, if you want to take this as an example, okay, this is a typical example for the while loop. You need to choose while loop here because this condition is not direct, right? This, see, you are giving a conditional check. Okay, you don't know when this is going to get false, right? The boundary is not fixed. Okay, you don't know when this condition will get false, right? Because it depends upon the balance. Sometimes I may have 10,000, sometimes I may have 1 lakh, right? I cannot say this at what point of time this is going to return false. The condition is not fixed. We are not sure the condition, not sure about the condition, right? But when you look at for loop is like you will have a boundary, like it starts from 1 and it ends at 100. Something you will be there. Something boundary is fixed, like you know the boundary already. But for the while loop, when you don't know the boundary, in this case, balance, okay, this will return false only if the balance is lesser than 0. But we don't know when the balance becomes 0. It depends upon the actual person. It varies from person to person. In those cases, we use what? We use while. Making sense? Not a direct thing. You cannot see the directly. For loop, it is fixed, right? The boundary is fixed from int I equal to 1 to, the conditional check. We will give the exact number. But for the while loop, we don't know the conditional. We actually don't know when it is going to return false. That's why we go for while loop. If you look at my statement, okay, I have said clearly the number of iterations are not fixed. We don't know how many times the true condition gets satisfied. If you don't know the boundary, we are not sure about the boundary, because in this case the boundary is dependent upon what? The balance. Today I may have 10,000. Tomorrow this gets incremented to 1 lakh. Day after tomorrow it could become what? It could become 1,000. Right? So this is depending upon the balance. We are not sure the changes in the balance. Right? Hope this is making sense. This statement is making sense, right? When you don't know the boundary, use while. When you know the boundary, use for. When you want to execute instruction at least once, use do while. Making sense? Yes, no? By to this is the conclusion of the what? This is conclusion of what? While loop, do while loop, and the For loop. This will not be discussed anymore. Okay, if you have any problems, any queries with respect to the patterns or whatever it is, you can approach me. I will help you to solve those problems. From tomorrow, we are going to start OOPS concepts. In the OOPS concepts, I will introducing you what branching statements. Making sense? Raji B, Sweta S, Jyoti N, Parimi, Krishna Prasad, Chaitanya. Everyone answer. Say something, yes or no, whatever you say something.